It's Tuesday, December 11th, and I'm your host, Paula Hersey. On today's show, we get the details on a drug bust by the Barnstable Police Department this past Friday, talk to Representative Randy Hunt about the canal bridges, and learn some winter safety tips for our four-legged friends. Let's start with some news you can use. Stuff-A-Bus volunteers were at the Cape Town Kmart Plaza in Hyannis all weekend, where thousands of new unwrapped toys made their way from all corners of Cape Cod to stuffed buses. Cape Area Fire and Police make children's holiday wishes come true.
Really, or fire department, you'll be sure to get. And if you can't get up and you want to make a monetary donation, call me up. I can get it. I'll go buy the toys for you. So every little bit helps, and it's just been an awesome time every year. This is, I think, 14th year doing this, so I have no idea what the number is right now. It's just
10 million.
It's overwhelming. It's awesome. I mean, all the towns showed up big this year, as they always do. And it's warms my heart just to know that the towns down Cape, the people down Cape, Lower Cape, like Wellfleet, Provincetown, Twirl, Orla, Eastham, all those areas, they did such an amazing job. I've never been this rivaled before, and it's a great feeling. I'm actually worried I might lose to a Lower Cape town that's much smaller than we are, but it actually warms my heart that if I lose, it's again not a battle I mind losing, because it's just all awesome. As long as every kid on Cape Cod Islands has a toy or more, it's fantastic.
The Barnstable Police Department was able to remove some fentanyl off the streets along with a drug dealer this past Friday. Chief Sonneman joins us with the details. With me today, Chief Sonneman. Again.
What do you know?
This is fantastic. We love having you live here in the studio.
Funny who you run across in Town Hall.
Exactly, and I know our viewers like to see you as well. We're going to get right into it because the Narcotics Detective Division had a great bust this week.
They do. They do great work. They put a lot of hours in. They spend a lot of time getting their job done, and in this case, they were able to catch an individual with significant amounts of cocaine and fentanyl.
Right, so this was late Friday afternoon, I think, is when I saw the press release for this, so give us some details.
Yep, late Friday afternoon, well, the drug unit had been working with the DEA, developed some information that there was an individual in Hyannis by the name of Jonathan Cattell, was driving up to the Lawrence area to purchase heroin or fentanyl and bringing it back to the Cape. So what they did is they followed their procedures, established some surveillance and stuff, kept an eye on him, and learned that he was making a trip. In fact, this last Friday, the 12/6, followed him up to Lawrence, made sure that what he was doing, and followed him back here and stopped him. And lo and behold, he did have approximately $35,000 worth of fentanyl in his car and about another $15,000, $20,000 worth of cocaine. So all told, about $50,000 worth of narcotics were taken off the street by the DEA and our detectives on Friday afternoon.
Wow, that's a lot of drugs out of this neighborhood and the community itself. I mean, this is just crazy.
It is, and that, the whole opiate crisis is still going on, and the drug of choice, it appears to be nowadays, is in fact the fentanyl, to get that stronger high. And anything we can do to prevent that from getting back here to the community, we're going to do it.
Right. So these are long, drawn-out type of processes for your detectives. Walk us through a procedure like this of how they kind of, you said that they are working with the DA. Does that actually come in at the beginning of these investigations or at the end of it?
Well, it depends. I mean, usually when you get something like this, somewhere along the line you're getting information from either someone that is a drug user, or you're getting information from the community at large. So these investigations tend to be protracted, like you said, and expensive. And if they're large enough scale, the DEA or a federal agency likes to get involved because they want to stem the tide as well. They want to work on it from their end. And in this case, they had an interest in this case, so they worked with us on it. But it requires, you're right, significant man hours. You got to keep an eye on the person. You got to see if they're doing whatever it is that they're actually the person said they were doing. You develop information. Are they going to known drug areas? Are they actually making these purchases? You got to make sure it's getting done. You got to document it. And then even after you make these arrests, it doesn't end there. There's a court process that goes in. You got to follow the proper evidentiary procedures. You got to be able to, if you're accusing someone of a significant crime, you got to be able to come to court and say, here's what we did. Here's how we investigated it. And yes, in fact, we did find this stuff, and we've tested it. It is what it is illegal narcotics, and you got to present that all at court, and it can take quite a while. It really can.
Right. And the evidence piece of this, and then money and things that are derived from that drug money, how does that all work?
Well, the drugs themselves, obviously while the court case is proceeding forward, we have to retain everything. It's evidence. They have a right to, confront your accuser and everything and see what's being brought against you. So after the case is dissolved and disposed of and everything, the narcotics go on a destruction scheduling site. We work with the state police and work with the other state agencies. They actually take care of running an incinerator, and they schedule these things to come up and be destroyed. So it takes a little while. It can take a year or so to actually get it after the court case is over, to actually get it in there, because you imagine that we're not the only ones that are seizing illegal drugs, and the other agencies are too. So they only have a certain number of sites around the state where they do this. So you have to schedule it and get it done ahead of time. You have to let them know how much you're bringing in, what exactly it is, and bring it up there. And then, like I said, even the testing before court, you have to make sure you're dealing with a reputable source of testing, like the state or some other private place that does all the testing for you, because as you saw in the past with the whole Amy Dukin scandal, that's going to get called into question. Who are you using? What was the methodology there? How was it done? Are you sure this is what it is? And that all gets called into question. So you got to make sure that you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's at all steps from beginning to end.
Right. And the last piece of that is the money and the vehicles that this drug money is, purchased. What happens with that?
Well, it depends. There are asset forfeiture and asset seizure type of procedures that you go through. It's kind of like a mini trial on its own to determine what happens with that. You got to go through court procedures. People just don't generally give up their stuff. So you go back to court. You say, well, we did. Here's how we know it's related to drug activity. It was seized during the arrest, or we know that this money went to go purchasing these things, and doesn't have a job. Well, you really go through that whole thing again, but it's not involving the actual sale of the drugs. It's involving, okay, what were the fruits of, what were the proceeds of that enterprise, and how can you show that what you've got here is legitimately connected to that illegal enterprise? Once that's all sorted out, and then depending on whether it's federal or state, there's slightly different procedures. And then they decide what they're going to do with the funds or the actual things like trucks or cars or boats. Right. And in the past, we have made like houses and cars and trucks. We get them, we're not allowed to keep them. They get sold at like an auction. You see these, property room auctions or police auctions. A lot of those proceeds, a lot of those things that are being auctioned off are either abandoned property or are proceeds of criminal activity, not necessarily drugs, but get seized during different investigations. And they get auctioned off at the end.
It's a fascinating.
It is.
It really is. It just, you think about it, where getting one nefarious individual off the streets and the drugs that he's providing the community to, what did he purchase with that drug money, and where does that all go?
Well, it's part of the whole, and when they came up with this, part of you're trying to provide some of the funding back to the different agencies or different prevention programs so that they can get some good out of it. But you're also also a deterrent factor. If I'm going out and making this money, you know, if I know it's going to get seized, maybe it's going to deter me from going out and engaging that activity. And you know, unfortunately, it doesn't seem to. You know, the people still do it.
So right now he's in jail.
Right now
being
he's
arraigned.
still in jail and being held.
Excellent, great work.
Awesome, thank you.
So we'll leave this interview on a positive note. Obviously getting bad guys off the street is what you do.
Yep.
But I had the opportunity to see the parade of law enforcement and public safety officials come down 132 with absolutely truckloads of toys, like
Truckloads, trailer loads, car loads.
33,000 something toys.
A lot of toys, 33,000 toys. That was, you know, and a thank you to you out there, because those toys came from you guys out there. Not, you know, we didn't have Santa's workshop in the basement of the BPD building all this stuff. You guys came forward and gave us stuff, and there was actually one individual, remained anonymous, donated $34,000.
Wow.
$34,000 was donated to go out and purchase toys and whatnot
Oh, my
for
goodness.
children and whatnot. So that was all given to the Toys for Tots organization. So there is a lot of good out there. I mean, you hear stories of like Mr. Cattell, and you start thinking that it's, you know, it's bad and it's doom and gloom, but no, really, with all the generosity that we've seen all this year, it's you people that really matter. It's
Right.
not, it's the audience out there who's doing the good things and the right things every day that really shines forth unlike the Toys for Tots Day.
Right.
It really does.
I did run into Officer Morrison, who is the spearheader of this train of joy, I guess you could call it, because he seems to be everywhere with this. He was actually happy that you lost the cup. You lost the toy cup.
Yeah, you're not really losing anything because the kids win, and it's
The
kind
kids
of a
win.
friendly competition to like motivate people to get out there and volunteer and stuff. But you know, it's good-natured stuff. So
Provincetown.
P-Town.
The littlest town on
Great
Cape
job.
Cod,
Hey,
huh?
you're small, but you got a big heart. You know, that community really pulled together and pushed them through. So good to them. Good for
Yeah.
them.
Fantastic organization, obviously, and a great amount of toys and lots of happy children on Christmas.
It is, and you know, it doesn't have to stop at the end of Christmas. You know, these organizations are looking for volunteers and donations year-round to make a difference in the community. And if you can't give to them, give to somebody else. Spend some time, help out your community.
That's right. Be nice.
Be nice.
Excellent. Thanks, Chief.
Have a great day.
Replace or repair the canal bridges. Representative Randy Hunt joins us with details from a community listening session with the Army Corps of Engineers. With me on the phone today, Representative Randy Hunt, who has been to the Canal Bridge meeting, several meetings that have been scheduled over the course of this week and next, talking about replacing or rehabilitating the bridges. Randy, welcome.
Hey, thanks, Paula. It's always good to talk to you.
So you have sat in bridge meetings for years, it seems like.
Quite literally.
Quite literally. But this one was a little bit different. Can you give residents, we won't have our meeting until next Monday in Barnstable High School, but can you give folks an overview of what they can expect with this meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers?
Yeah, the thing about these meetings is the Army Corps of Engineers and Massachusetts Department of Transportation have been conducting Cape Cod Canal region studies, and those are the meetings I've been going to for a couple of years, maybe a little longer than that. And it's a combination of what do we do with the bridges, as well as what do we do with all of the roads that lead up to them, and how do we get rid of some of the pinch points that we have. And to do that, they've projected traffic going all the way out to 2040. And so they've been very interesting, no question about it. And the DOT has concluded their process, but they want to roll out, coincidentally with the Army Corps, what the plan is going to be for the entire region. And for that, we're going to have to wait till about mid-year 2019 to get the Army Corps' study, draft study, and then a completed final study by the end of next year. The point is, as you said, Paula, do we continue doing what we're doing now? which is maintaining these bridges and closing lanes every spring and fall and doing all of that kind of thing. Plus, over the next 50 years, sustaining 2 major rehabs, which means for a period of time that these one or the other of the bridges would be closed. So imagine that. The first one of those coming up within the next 10 to 15 years. So the alternative to doing, something other than what we're doing today is to put in new bridges. And that has been talked about at length over the last few years. There have been many suggestions. One would be to just replace the 2 existing bridges with bridges that would be on the insides of the Sagamore and Bourne Bridge, but modernized to modern highway standards. The Army Corps is required to do 2 things. If it replaces those bridges, it needs to replace them with 2 lanes in each direction as they are today, but the current highway standards would widen the lanes from 10 to 12 feet. There would be a breakdown lane, and there would be a median in between the opposing lanes of traffic. So they would be a lot safer. They're likely to have a bigger run-up and be a little flatter than what we have now. And all of that would happen without any tolls. That's another piece that Congress has put on top of them. So the only question about the replacements at this point is, would they replace them with what we have now, traffic-wise, or would they widen those bridges by 2 lanes to allow a 3rd lane where you would have a lane to come in on the bridge at the beginning and off the bridge at the other side. And that would allow for better mixing and better traffic pace on the lanes that are the through lanes. Right. So what happened was that was put up in front of everybody in some wonderful slides, including August Belmont's opening of the Cape Cod Canal in 1914, just 2 weeks before the Panama Canal. I'm sure there was some contest going on there. And then they had Q&A. Well, it wasn't Q&A, I should say. They just had comments from the members of the audience who showed up there.
Right.
So in that, we had, maybe there were 40, 45 people there, and at least a dozen people talked. And they had several people had a number of questions, and several people which were not answered because it was just input only. And then some people had some suggestions, ranging from reviving the idea of a bridge that would be positioned center of the 2 existing bridges. They're about 3 miles apart, so about 1.5 miles from each one of the bridges, crossing Cape Cod, Joint Base Cape Cod, and having outlets that would go either out to 25 or to Route 6. That whole concept has been nixed a long time ago because of the amount of environmental issues that are involved there. But people brought it up, and somebody else brought up, hoping to use a sticker that he's had on his car, I'm sure. He wanted to talk about tunneling under the canal and seeing if we could use more modern techniques to tunnel under cheaper than we used to. So you got quite a few people with different ideas on what they would like to see happen.
Right. Well, this is such a huge issue for, not just our tourism industry, getting on and off Cape in those busy summer months as we have, millions of people that come here, but also when these lanes close on the off season. This is a real pinch point, using a term for you, for local area businesses and commuters that get over those bridges every single day.
Yeah, and the closer your business is to the canal, the worse it is, obviously, when we have those closings. This past spring around the Sagamore area was a good example of that. And this study actually is not just bringing up a cost-benefit dollars-to-dollars analysis, although they're doing that to try and figure out, is it cheaper to replace the bridges versus maintain them for the next 50 years, including, as I said, a couple of major rehabs. But also, what are the other factors? What are the environmental factors of having cars sitting there spewing fumes, lined up for sometimes all the way back to an hour and a half, Route 6 trying to get off the Cape on a Sunday or Monday. It also is considering the business factors, and it's also considering safety factors, because although you could probably throw a dart at the tri-state area of New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut and hit a bridge that is busier and more clogged up more hours of the day and the year, you could always drive around those bridges one way or the other. In our case, we have two bridges that provide the only ingress and egress to Cape Cod. That's hugely important. I think that's going to weigh heavily in this study. So what I'm hoping for is that people, when they go and talk about whether they want to see these bridges replaced, and I definitely favor that we do that, they should talk about all of those factors. The business factor, the safety factor, the environmental factor, and let the Corps of Engineers figure out what the present value of fixing the bridges over 50 years is, because they have the data to do that. And so that kind of feedback is going to be important in this report. And I'm fairly confident that they'll come out with a draft report about mid-year that's going to recommend replacing the two bridges.
Well, good work at sitting in that meeting. I know that you're there at most of those meetings that are out there, and Barnstable's is going to be Monday, December 2012, at the Barnstable Performing Arts Center, I believe, right at the high school. So hopefully people come out and get their input recorded and get a look at this draft report.
Very good. Thank you, Paula.
Thank you, Randy. Take care. Barnstable will have their chance to participate in the Army Corps of Engineers meeting this Wednesday, December 12th, 6 p.m. at the Performing Arts Center at Barnstable High School. Animal Control Officer Cindy Sherman is enjoying all the new furry faces at the dog park and has some special winter safety tips for you and your pets. Well, the dog park has officially opened and winter is here. What are we going to do with our pets during the wintertime? With me today, Animal Control Officer Cindy Sherman. Cindy, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let's talk dog park first. I was just there this past weekend.
Isn't it great?
Super fun, tons. Who knew there were so many dogs?
Right. And it's hysterical. It's one of my favorite things to do each day is to stop and visit the dog park. I have such a hard time dragging myself out of there. Some days, you can barely find any dogs in there, and they're like, where is everybody else? And then other days, it's so full, and they're just so full of energy and so fun.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful spot for this dog park. We actually took our dogs for a quick walk on leash around Hathaway's Pond, which was really nice, trying to acclimate them to the area a little bit.
Sure.
And then headed into the dog park. And again, the separation of the larger dogs to the smaller dogs really makes people feel comfortable.
Definitely. I think it makes a huge difference. Some people are, like you said, they're just not comfortable, bringing their smaller dogs in with some of these larger dogs. And to be quite honest with you, sometimes some of the larger dogs are not comfortable with some of these little ones that, are coming at them. But, for the most part, though, I think everybody is just, being really good about, etiquette and whatnot. And, we just really encourage to make sure everyone's wearing their tags when they come in, their licenses, and, just all about having fun and just following the regulations and being safe, for everyone.
Right. They can find the regulations on the Town of Barnstable's website, townofbarnstable.us. It lists exactly what should happen in the dog park.
Yep.
One of the things that we should probably mention is that the water, because of winter, has now been shut off.
The water is now shut off. I have noticed people bringing in their own water. The dishes are still there, the bowls are still there. I noticed the other day someone had brought in one of those, big pull and spring jugs. And, there's water available. You can bring your own water, but the water is shut off for the winter.
Okay. Anything else you want folks to know about the dog park and its first month being open?
Oh,
It's wonderful.
It's great. Yeah, just, enjoy and be safe and make sure you're paying attention to, your pets. Make sure you're paying attention to your dog. And, the only biggest concern we have is children and license and rabies.
Right.
Those, we need to make sure for everyone's safety that all dogs are, vaccinated and licensed, and, children, 10 and under, just really, it's not a safe place for them, especially when the park is full.
Right,
Yeah,
right, and
know.
it can be. I mean, when we were there this past weekend, there had to have been probably 15 dogs in the big dog area,
Yep.
and there was a good 10 little guys in our area, so it
Yeah.
was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really is. It is. I'm so glad to see everyone enjoying it.
And let's talk just a little bit about winter safety. So kind of a two-pronged question for you. First is, some holiday tips. The trees are going up, presents are going under the trees. What should people really be cognizant about at this time of year?
So, like you said, the trees are going up. A huge thing is wires. Especially cats. You've got cats and dogs chewing on wires. Make sure that, you've got those wires tucked away safely. Make sure that, they're not strung across where the animals can trip and pull the tree down. And, believe it or not, I actually have had squirrels coming in on the trees.
Wow.
You make sure you check your trees before you bring your trees in. I know it sounds silly, but it is.
Right.
But, big thing though, those pads, the dog's pads, make sure that you're wiping their pads down, even when you go to the dog park, but especially when you're on salted roads and sidewalks and, if your driveway, anything like that. Make sure you wipe them down before they come in so they're not licking and, getting any kind of toxins or just sores.
Right.
So.
And dogs outside at this time of year, as the weather starts to get a lot colder.
Yes.
What's the rule of thumb for maybe like the size of the dog or the fur that is on the dog?
Well, obviously a smaller dog is going to get colder a lot quicker. Their body temperature is just not, just like an infant, it's going to get, cold a lot quicker than a larger dog. And, obviously some dogs are built for the winter. Some of your huskies and thicker coated friends, like the winter a lot more than others. If your dog's got, short hair, short fur, thin coats, you might even want to put a sweater on them. And definitely, don't let them stay outside too long. And, winter advisories, don't leave them out there at all.
Right. And then the last thing I want to touch on, because this is, we had an Australian Shepherd over the years that was a counter surfer.
Okay.
So, holiday goods and things like that.
Absolutely.
What's some of the precautions people can take with food?
Food is a big one. We've got a lot of dog bites this time of year, and a lot of them are food related. Make sure your food's not at the edge of the counters where the dog's going to jump up. Make sure you put it away, you cover it. And, just be careful when you try to stop the dog, too. A lot of times they don't know any better. They're going for that food, and you stick your hand in there to grab that food away from them. There is potential for getting bit. So make sure your food's up high, back on the back side of the counters. A lot of times I even recommend, keeping the dogs out of the kitchen when you got your cooking and all the commotion going on.
Right. And
So-
one of the things I always caution people, because we learned by mistake, is don't put food under the tree.
Oh
Wrapped.
gosh, no, absolutely not. That
They
is
will unwrap the present.
Oh, absolutely they will, So, do not, definitely, whether you wrap it or, it's in a box, they smell it, they'll find it.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And chocolate is really toxic to dogs.
absolutely.
So boxes of chocolate and things like that are really
Absolutely.
dangerous.
Be very careful about that. Yeah, don't leave box of chocolates lying around anywhere.
Excellent.
Dishes or boxes, watch the candies.
Right. Anything else you want folks to know about the season?
Just enjoy and have fun, and just, make sure you're paying attention to where your pets are and what they're doing.
Excellent. Thanks so much,
All
Cindy.
right, thank you.
I'm Paula Hersey, and thank you for watching Barnstable Today.